G'day. Here in the car waiting for Leanne, who's at an appointment. But I wanted to take a moment to personally address our church family and anyone interested in what's happening in our church as we engage and move as a state towards phase 2 of the lifting of restrictions, but also prepare for the direction God's calling us to as a church family. Before I get into the specifics, I want to just remind all of us that God's been preparing us for this. Early last year, he gave us a verse, Deuteronomy 32:11. And at the time, certainly for me, I thought, well, this is about the way we restructure our auditorium. I think it was actually much bigger than that, much broader than that. Deuteronomy 32:11 says, like an eagle that stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, that spreads its wings to catch them and carries them aloft. The Lord alone led him. And the picture is of a mother eagle that breaks up a nest and sort of kicks the baby birds out so that they can learn to fly. And the real sense that God has been leading us as a church out of the familiar and into a new era where we are together learning to fly. And as part of that, we were praying last night at our church weekly prayer group, and I'd love to invite you to join us on a Thursday night, 8 p.m. The sense was, as we were praying, that God was reaffirming the heart of this verse and saying, you are not going back. Although there'll be a lot of language around, the return to normalcy, the sense that God was saying to us as a church, I don't want you to go back to normal. I want you to learn to fly. The nest is not where you belong. And so we're going to continue to move forward. The sense that God is calling us to move forward. We'll talk more about what it means. The heart of our church doesn't change, and the general direction. There are 3 directions that we have as a church. The first one is we want to know what it genuinely means to follow Jesus, and we want Jesus to be the head of the church. Second one is we want to learn to share in community and to be a genuine bunch of mates on the journey, shoulder to shoulder, following Jesus. And the third one is we want to be a blessing. We want to be the salt and light in the community. We want to be a blessing for our neighbours, our families, our friends, in our workplaces. And part of our sense of what God has for us as we learn to fly is that he'll be wanting to teach us more about what that actually means. Now, specifically, as we move forward, we've got a church meeting coming up on the 21st of June, and we are making some simple but strategic changes to how we operate. We're moving our financial year, and as part of that, moving our AGM to better align with the calendar year. And we'll tell you more about that. You'll have received, church members will have received information from Jan about that already. And yesterday you will have received an email from Malcolm. If you haven't, on behalf of the elders, sort of painting some other direction with that. If you haven't received that, please let us know, and we'll get you the info you need. And I am excited about what God's got in store for us. As we prepare, though, for what God's got in store for us, I want to remind us of a commitment we made at the start of the year. We said that in the shortest week of the year, we would gather for prayer, and we would have a week of prayer and fasting. That shortest week of the year is coming up, June 15th. And from June 15th to the 21st, where we'll be having our church meeting, I'm wanting to encourage us to set aside that week for prayer and fasting and to invite those from around the state to join us. It's been a crazy old week, hasn't it? As you look at what's happening in the news, and while we're having to adjust to new easing of restrictions, others are adjusting to increases in the death rates and the rate of pandemic around the world, and poor old America is having a really tough time. Our sense is that this, as we are talking about the long-term future of the church, and as the world seems to, in a particular way, really need prayer, we're wanting to take June 15 to 21 to specifically pray, and at midday every day, we will be hosting a 15-minute prayer time live here on Facebook we'll be setting up a Facebook group, and each day we'll announce where we're going to be praying from. We'll be around the greater Hobart area, but we will also be joining around the state because our church family has grown, and we've had a lot of people with us right around the state. It's been really encouraging. And our sense is, as we are talking about moving to the future together, we need to be ready to come before Jesus and say, what have you got for us? And so we're wanting to, June 15 to 21, a special time of prayer. We'll be telling you more about that this coming Sunday. A few other changes to the Sunday service, trying to create more space for our micro churches. Speaking of micro churches, you will have heard that phase 2 restrictions for worship services now mean we can gather in groups of 40. Now, in the short term, what that means for us here in Hobart is that up to 39 people can gather at our Lena Valley campus, because with the 4 square metre rule, we can fit 39 people in Lena Valley. I want to encourage you though, if you started to attend a micro church, only go to Lena Valley if you really feel the need for a bigger connection with more people. But I think the micro churches are going to be part of our future. And we are, from this week on, we're preparing to, on our Sundays, be catering for at least 3 groups of people. First group of people, the government has said if you are at risk, either from a point of view of age or from a point of view of pre-existing health conditions, that it's really important for you to continue to self-isolate. And so we'll be continuing to cater for and care for those who need to self-isolate and join us online that way on a Sunday morning. We will be continuing to step into and press into the whole thing of micro churches. I'd love to see micro churches spread out right across the state. And we'll be having specific resources, and from this Sunday we'll be having specific times in the service where you can gather as a micro church and discuss and work things through together. And we will be starting to prepare the ground for these mini churches that we like what we can have at the Lena Valley campus or in other church campuses. Down the track, we'll also host one at Mornington, but because of the works that are going on there, we're not going to open Mornington this weekend for a micro church service, but into the future we'll be planning to do that. We are planning that our Sunday mornings will continue to grow. The sense is that God is taking us on a journey. But I want to prepare you. We're not going back to normal. Church is not going to feel normal. That we still need to maintain social distancing. We still need to operate differently. And even just apart from the COVID-19 thing, the really clear sense, I hope you're hearing, God is calling us into a different way of operating. And still unpacking what all of that means. But it will, Sunday mornings, as an expression of that, will feel different in the future. One final thing, we gave you some advice in phase 1 to refrain from eating together. The advice I want to give you now is to look for ways to eat together and share a cuppa or whatever. We know that sharing a meal and having a cuppa is a really important part of building community. As part of that, please exercise caution. Really important as you think through. We're not encouraging you to think through, or we are encouraging you rather to think through how do you minimize handling, how do you make sure everybody sanitizes their hands, how do you keep it safe. But we've sent out our church directory, and we want to find ways of connecting with one another. Now we're into phase 2. We can enjoy fellowship at a greater level. So we'll be wanting to encourage our micro churches to have a cuppa or to share a meal after the micro church. But be very careful in terms of, and we still need to observe all the social distancing things about 1.5 metres and 4 square metres in a room, etc. Another time of change we're heading into, but I just want to encourage you. God has been with us the whole way through. I have been so encouraged by the response, and lovely to see new people turning up into micro churches and online. Each week we have between 400 and 800 people with us. The generosity of our people has been just overwhelming. As we were heading into this, I was thinking, how are we going to survive this financially? But our giving has actually gone up, both for the Nepali Trust Fund, but also just for general church, general tithing. So thank you for your faithfulness in that. But I want to invite you to keep praying and be ready. The very clear sense, as we were praying last night in our prayer, in the prayer meeting, that God is calling us forward, not backward. And I hope and pray that we can be ready for the future He's calling us into. Thanks for the time, taking the time to watch this. I look forward to sharing this ongoing journey with you. And it is nice that from this afternoon at 3 o'clock, the restrictions are easing a bit. But as I said, please don't think that for our church that means we're going to be going backwards in any shape or form. We're going forwards to a different kind of future. And out of the nest, I think God is teaching us how to fly. So thanks for taking the time to watch this. Look forward to continuing to share this journey with you.